Thank you for having me.
Oh, well. First of all, let's talk about your book. Now, your book is called Stardom Happens, and I'm sure it's a pun on my uh, eloquent phrase before. and
Yeah.
and I would like to know, how did you decide, I've had my journey through this, and I really need to let people know about how it was. What was it that made you say, I need to put pen to paper to write this story?
Well, it was kind of a combination of things. Just feeling like I wanted to have parents not go into it the way we did, which was so incredibly naive. Also, a few years ago, a friend of ours who used to be Taran's publicist wanted to start a acting school, and he said, I was wondering if you would be willing to talk with the parents and, give them ideas and tips for what to do. And I went, oh, yeah. So that kind of pushed, we've been thinking about it, but that kind of pushed it over the edge, because then I thought, well, this would be the time to start writing it down, and just so I could get my thoughts together. And then it just kind of emerged into a book. But our thoughts were just that when we first got into the business, and when most people get into the business, they have no idea how the business runs, and they have no idea what the child is getting into. We signed a 7-year contract for the home improvement show, not knowing anything. I mean, we didn't even know who Tim Allen was. So, and you're sort of signing your child's life away. So we really just wanted to give parents a heads up, because it can be an incredibly wonderful experience if you're prepared, if you know what you're getting into, and if your child is prepared, and if you have the right attitude through the whole thing. Protecting your child and keeping them safe.
I was watching this program, and I don't know if you've heard of what I'm about to talk about. They bring kids, I think it's around springtime, to Hollywood, and they stay in like this hotel, and then it's like a camp or something, and then they go out and they do like screenings and they do auditions for about 3 months or so in order to get into to get cast for the fall series that are beginning. And it's like a whole bunch of kids from ages 5, on the way up to maybe 13, 14 or something like that. Now, have you heard about those kinds of camps?
I have. It started, I think, because there is a hotel, it's actually an apartment complex called the Oakland Apartments, and people come for pilot season. They know that that's when all of the TV shows are first putting out their first episode, their pilot, to see if they'll get picked up. So people come in from all over the country and stay in those apartments, which are close to most of the studios, and go from there to trying auditions. And lots of times studios are looking for kids from out of town, because they feel like the LA kids are kind of jaded, and they want new kids, and also they want naive kids, which is people that don't know what they're doing. So it's kind of works that way. But I've heard that there are some camps that have set up to do that, but it came from that concept that the apartments are there and it's a way to get your child in. We had no idea about any of that when Taran got involved, and then we just happened to end up at that time. But that was totally by accident.
Well, tell us about that. Tell us how he ended up, or you ended up bringing him, or were you living in Hollywood? I mean, how did that all come about?
We were living in San Francisco, actually north of San Francisco in Marin, where we still are, and my daughter started doing a little bit of modeling in the city. I took her into the city with some pictures, and when she was about 5, because people kept telling me, oh my gosh, she's so cute, she ought to model. Taran got in after that. He's 7 years younger, and he got in as a baby. They came to me and said, do you want him to work? And I was nursing him in the waiting room, and I said, what? And I said, you have jobs for babies? And they said, well, yes, we do occasionally, and we don't take babies. We just use brothers and sisters of the kids we already have. And she said, here, just sign this card. So he signed it, and about 2 weeks later, they called him for Baby News catalog, and he was on the front of the catalog as an 8-month-old baby. And that's kind of how he got started. But they were doing maybe 3 or 4 jobs a year, I mean, it was
Mhm.
nothing very big, and I would put the money in their piggy bank, and that's basically how we got started. And then Taran ended up with doing a job that got him into the Screen Actors Guild. So he had a SAG card, which was an Enterprise rental car commercial, and at the time he was doing that, the director sort of noticed. Well, actually, I was in the business at the time too, working as a script supervisor, and I worked on a movie in L.A. And the director said, "Oh, you should bring him down to L.A. and sign him up. There's lots of work down here." And my mother lived in L.A., so I thought, well, I'll take him down. And he gave us an agent to go to, and I thought, well, he might get a 2-day commercial or something. I
Right.
never dreamed of a TV series. That was just not in our thinking at all, let alone #1 TV series that went for 8 years.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
was not something we had in mind at all. And we had to, make some major life changes to do it. But, yeah, that's kind of how we kind of just dropped into it. And we didn't know when we met the agent that it was pilot season and all of that was happening. We knew nothing, I thought, well, he might get a little, 1 or 2 day commercial and go down and stay
Sure.
with my mother and do it. And so it was, just totally by accident. But it was a wonderful accident.
Yeah, and so we all watched him grow up. All of the boys, the 3 boys, just grow up on Home Improvement, and it's so. How does that work as far as your time, school? Did you have to like quit your job or whatever in order to maintain what he was doing?
I did. I quit my job. I was a script supervisor on feature films and commercials at the time, and I'm also a substitute teacher, so I was doing both of those. I stopped doing those and stayed with him on the set. He was just 7 years old, and so we moved in with my mom for the first 2 years. My daughter and my husband stayed up here in Marin because she had just started a really good private high school that she worked really hard to get into, and we didn't want to change that. And my
Mhm.
husband's work was up there anyway. So Taran and I would drive down with 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and we'd drive back on the week off, come back up home. And then we stayed with my mom for the first 2 years, and then we got an apartment that was closer to the studio. And then on the 6th year, we finally bought a house down there so that we wouldn't have to do so much commuting. And my husband did the commuting at that point. And yes, I stayed with him on the set. He was only 7. You could get a set sitter or something, but I wasn't going to do that because he was just a young
Mhm.
old guy. And
Yeah.
and um, and it was okay for me to drop my career for a while, and I picked it back up later when the show was over. But it's important to be there. They're there all day, every day. Basically 8.5 hours when he first started, and then it moved up to 9.5 as he got older. And they have school on the set when they're there. They have a teacher that you have to still have them in a regular school, but
Mhm.
which provides the work. But the tutor on the set, helps them do it and watches over them. So yeah, that's basically how it worked. And
Okay.
he loved it. He really enjoyed every year when we'd have a hiatus from April through July, and at the
Okay.
beginning of July he would say, "When are we going back? When are we going back?" I said, "Are you sure? Are you sure you want to keep doing this?" "Yes, I do." I said, "Well, when are we going back? When are we going back?" So, we'd always check with him every year. I was not going to take him down there if he didn't want to do it. So,
Right.
but he
Right.
loved it.
Well,
Well,
we do have we have a question from our chat room here, and one of the questions from one of the listeners asked, "How difficult is it to manage money for a child star, and how do you handle the transitioning of the money when they turn 18?"
Very good question, because that's where parents, including us, I mean, this book, includes all of our good experiences and some of our, and our bad ones as well. That's very tricky. The money is coming in. When Taran was on the show, 25% of the money had to go into a trust fund for him.
Okay.
They've now changed the rule, and it's 15% of everything. Because at that time they didn't count commercials and smaller jobs, just big jobs. Now it's 15% of everything, and that goes into an untouchable trust until he's 18. My wish is that it would be 21, but unfortunately it's 18. So the kids get all that money at 18, however much it is, and that leads into some problems because you have to really know who they're hanging out with. That's when I call them the sharks start circling. They come in around 16, 17. They know that trust fund is out there, and they can swing in and start influencing your child a lot. And so you have to be very, very careful, way more careful than we ever dreamed of, particularly now with the internet as well, and watch who is coming into their child's life at that time. But that's basically untouchable. Then the rest of the money is spread out between taxes, of course, and then all the expenses that they incur while you have to pay your agent 10%. You have to pay, if you have a publicist, if they get to be a big star, you have a publicist, you have a lawyer, you have acting classes, which you always want to keep doing. You have all these other expenses that come out of the rest of the money, and then what's left is the child's money as well. But there's not usually too much left after all of that. But luckily, 15% of everything now is put away. When we were in a business, it was 25%. So after taxes and agents and all that stuff, there really wasn't too much left. But yeah, and then you just have to be extra careful to watch who comes into their life. That's the problem we had, and we both, Karen and I, don't want to see it happen to other parents and the other kids. It's a nightmare. We were able to get through it, and by the time he was, he was influenced by a group, and by the time he was 19, he, realized what was going on and came back to us. But it was a difficult time, and it happens to a lot of kids in this business because that money is just sitting there, and these people know that with that, when that money is available, they can do a lot of things. You can get lawyers, and they can get people to work for them because everybody knows, when he's 18, that money is, I'll get paid. It's all there. So they have more power than you think, So you really, even at 16, so you really have to be ultra careful. But if you are, it can be a wonderful experience if you go in there aware of all of that and, prepared for it.
Right.
His acting experience was absolutely amazing. We had such good time, and at the end of the show, everybody said, "Oh, you've been such good parents. He's so normal. He's so down to earth. It hasn't affected him at all." And it was a year later, after the show was over, that he met that group of people, and that's what you have to watch out for.
So it's mainly like the Hollywood people or something like that, or just other kids.
Well, in this case,
or other teens.
Yeah, it was other teens. I mean, it was adults. It was other adults who knew what they were doing, and yeah, you really have to watch out. I've seen some kids. People come in and claim that they're financial advisors, and they're going to advise the kid what to do with the money, and and all of a sudden it's gone. It's just, you just have to be very, very careful because they know the kids are naive. That's one of the things about being on the set is that they are pretty naive. My mother, I remember saying to my mom, I'm really worried he's not streetwise, and she said, "Honey, he's not even playground wise." I realized that it's true. They're having their school on the set with in this case there were the 3 boys, but in some cases they might be the only child, and they don't have that interaction between different people. So Taran just sort of believed that everybody was good. He didn't get the idea that some people may not be so good. They may be saying things and not really be meaning them. So you have to be careful because they are ultra naive in that respect. They don't have the experience, and people know that. So you have to watch out. But
so you've heard. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say for as far as tips go for how to what to do, the really beginning thing is you've got to be sure that that your child is right for the business, because sometimes your child can have tons of talent, but if they don't have the right personality, they should not be there. And they've got to be outgoing, they've got to be intelligent, they have to be able to memorize things. They certainly have to be able to wait patiently because most of the business is waiting for one thing after another. And rejection, they really got to be able to handle rejection and not fall apart. We have a little grandson who's absolutely adorable, and agents have clamor to get him, and we have to say no because he doesn't have, he doesn't, he cries. If you just say anything harsh to him, he'll just burst into tears. And I thought, oh no, if a director wanted him to do something different, he would just fall apart. So you really have to know your child and know that they can handle what's going to be in front of them. That's the first step.
And you know what? I think that a lot of kids are like that. They do cry, especially in those young ages. They don't like waiting around. And I guess that's why a lot of times they use twins in order to kind of battle that part of it.
Right. And also it's because of the child labor laws. Children can only work so many hours a day, particularly young children. When Taran first started, the other two boys were much older. They were 3 years older, so they could work a lot longer. So Taran would have to come in at 10 o'clock when all the rehearsing started, but they could come in an hour early and get an hour's worth of school. They have to have 3 hours of school every day. So he would have to have his 3 hours during the actual rehearsal time. So that cut the amount of time he could be in the, actually acting on the set. And the other boys were older. They could come in an hour early and get one of those hours of school out of the way. So, there's just different. So when you have twins, sometimes it's just because they need longer hours and they can't work, the kids can't work that long. So they just rotate the twins around, or the triplets, or whatever it is.
Now, you've heard of the term momager. How do you feel about or have you witnessed some of the other, parents in the business that are not acting in the best interest of their children? I mean,
yes, we saw that a lot because both my kids were in the business for so long, so we did run into that, and it's really difficult. I kind of call them the pot of gold parents, the kids, parents that are just thinking about the money, and, well, if you get this, we can have this money, and it's so awful when you see a parent pushing their child into it that you can see the child is not wanting to be there or, just doesn't have it, and it's very, very upsetting. But luckily, most of the producers are kind of aware of that and are, I think sometimes now they actually not only do they audition the kids, but they kind of watch the parents too.
Okay.
I mean, it's because you don't want to see that happen, and it does happen a lot. You see just kind of really horrendous things going on, and you think, oh my goodness, this child should not be here. It's difficult, but it does happen, and unfortunately, but I think sometimes, word gets around. Everybody, crew members talk to each other. Everybody talks to each other, and the word does get around. And usually, if you see it, that happening, they won't get asked back for another job. It's oftentimes that's kind of weeded out because nobody really enjoys it.
Now, now within your book, can you tell us about some of the tips that you give, and what can a person find when they pick up this book? Is it more of a self-help book for those who are looking to get into bringing their children into the business?
Well, it's 3 parts to it. The first part is, yes, it's kind of helping if you're interested in getting into business, what should you do? First of all, be sure your child is the right. Then how does your child get experience with school plays and community theater? And then how do you look for an agent? What the different things, like, for instance, if an agent asks you to pay them ahead of time, forget it, that they're not reputable. How to go into the agent audition, and then how to actually handle auditions themselves to keep your child happy and safe during an audition. It's hard for them, and it's what I always do is we'd have the kids we'd go into the city. We lived in San Francisco, and it was always an outing. It wasn't, the audition was just a minor thing. We would go to Golden Gate Park, or we'd go to the FAO Schwartz toy store, we'd go to the zoo, and then we'd just do the audition kind of on the side. So it wasn't made into a big, oh my God, you're going to a big audition. It was just like, yeah, we're going to go in here and talk to these people. And so you really kind of try to do that, and then that's all in how to get good photographs made, how to deal with the labor laws. That's all kind of the beginning. And then the second part of the book is, if your child does get a job, what do you expect on the set? What's going to happen? About the education, how do you deal with contracts, and how do you deal with just finding the right teacher, and just all the different things that happen, the safety on the set, what to expect when you first get there, that kind of thing. And then the third one, which is sort of the longer section, is once your child is a star, how do you deal with all of the rest of the stuff, like fan mail and charities and public appearances and the financial aspect of it, and keeping your child grounded. I mean, fame can be pretty crazy sometimes, and they can, it can all go to their head. So how do you keep them, being a normal kid all the way through it? And how do you keep your family together? Because a lot of times, you have one child that's doing all this, and what about your other kids? What's going to happen with them? His sister, luckily, Taran's sister was older and was very happy doing what she was doing, but we always tried to include her into anything that we were doing, and all the charities we were doing and the special appearances and stuff, and anytime she could get away from school and join us, she would do it. And it's really important to remember you have other children, and how do you keep them going? And then the other thing is, how do you end a career when a child decides either the show is over or they decide they don't want to act anymore? How do you gracefully get out, so that the child isn't just devastated that it's over? And you've got to remember that, keep them understanding that they're loved no matter what, and it doesn't have to do with what they're doing. It has to do with who they are. And so it's kind of divided into those three sections. So it kind of it helps on all those aspects.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting book, and I think I'm going to have to pick it up. I don't have any kids going into the entertainment business, but it sounds very interesting. It's something that people look at. They look at these kids on TV. You hear the horror stories. That's what you hear. And you see them, But, but you wonder, how in the world do you have this child have a normal life? How can they grow up and be a normal person, and how can they make it out of the from a child star to an adult star if they want to continue in their acting career? So how is Taran doing?
He's doing really well. He's about to be 31, which is amazing. He decided, makes me feel very old. He decided when it was over that he didn't want to, he was 7 when he started. He was 15 when it ended. He, spent his whole life doing that. And I think the ending was really tough on him because it was, he didn't have much time and much memory of before Home Improvement. It was pretty much life as he knew it. And the other kids were older and the adults and everything, but for Taran it was a whole lifestyle that was ending. But he decided he didn't want to go into acting anymore. He was thinking originally about being a director. Of course, almost every actor says that.
I know.
It's so funny. But he ended up doing other things, and now he's doing really well. He's really a philanthropist. He really likes to help people. So he just came back from the Philippines. He was in the Philippines for 6 months, helping people recover from the big typhoon that hit in Tacloban a year ago. They set up a huge warehouse, this organization called Communitaire, and they brought all these big companies send in tools, and they trained the people how to use the tools and then lent them out like a library, tool library, so they could use them to rebuild their homes and their boats and stuff. And he just spent 6 months doing that, and he just got back, and he's going to go off and do another thing similar to that in a different place. And he's really got a heart as big as gold, and he really wants to help people. So that's kind of what he's focusing on at the moment. And I'm proud of him. I'm really proud of the person that he became, because he's a genuinely kind, sweet, wonderful kid.
No, that's
so
good. That's good.
That's what he's doing. And I don't know what he's going to end. I don't think he'll go back to the acting because, he said, I did that. I want to do other things.
Right. Well, he lucked up into something that was positive and good. So, and like, again, we hear so many kids who don't make it out. But first of all, I want to thank you so much, Candy, for coming on to the show. Thank you. I want everyone to make sure that they go out and pick up Stardom Happens. And tell us quickly, Candy, where can they find you?
StardomHappens.com. And the book is, the actual launch date where it's going to be available in all the stores is April 14th, and it's in Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You can pre-order in any of those places, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and all the big major bookstores. You can pre-order it, but it will actually come out on the 14th. And we're excited. I think it's, Taran wrote comments all through it, so it's really written by both of us. He put his humorous comments, and and basically kind of gave an idea of what it like from the idea of his own, from being the child star, and so it's written kind of by both of us, and we're excited. We're really excited that it's coming out, and I think it will give, even if you don't have a child that's going in, you'll at least get an understanding of how the business works, and the kind of behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah, that's what's
going
interesting to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Candy, for coming on to the Crystal Show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.